Critics and gamers never really thought much of Kane and Lynch. Opinions were generally mixed, and the game wasn't particularly on anyone's radar, but it still sold enough copies to warrant a sequel, which subsequently no one really remembers apart from playing as a butt-naked middle-aged man. Kane and Lynch was supposed to be a raw, gritty portrayal of the criminal underworld, specifically focusing on robbers, murderers, the mafia, and even guns for hire.
Fucking watchdog.
If I don't call them back with good news, they'll start with your wife.
Not as long as you do exactly as I say.
But even its moderately stable narrative couldn't detract from its unflattering depiction of violence and victimization.
Just keep it cool.
In an industry fueled by big-budget shooters like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, you'd think something like Kane and Lynch would fit in nicely. So this asks the question, what the hell happened to this franchise? And I don't simply mean where did it go, but also what went wrong and how does this franchise get crushed under the weight of other similar shooters. The major selling point to Kane and Lynch was that it has all the hard-boiled style of a Michael Mann flick, but lacks the subtlety of how many cops it's appropriate to kill in a video game context. The graphic imagery of Kane and Lynch maintained an appropriate realism to its theme, as it wasn't particularly bloody or offensive, and it did use relevant language and personality types. But the style was hindered by one major problem. Its gameplay makes the game come off as horrendously unfair. Now, while that does sound like a contradiction to everything I've just explained, the problem is that video game logic dictates that the player needs to constantly feel like they're playing a game. Kane and Lynch is a pure third-person shooter, and as such, your only job is to continuously mow down cops and criminals, but it does get a little out of hand.
Kane? Where the fuck have you been?
The body count is excessively high and devoid of any emotion. You should feel sympathetic and guilty for the people you kill, as for the most part it's usually either police or innocent civilians who get in your line of fire. While to some degree it works within context, as it's a spontaneous part of realism that the wrong people get in the way, the game focuses on such a combat-heavy approach that it completely desensitizes the impact. It just feels like the mindless chaos you find in Saints Row. The Last of Us found a way to generate an emotional core to its combat, making it feel desperate, necessary, and even gratifying, something which Kane and Lynch ultimately failed to accomplish.
Fuck, my ears are bleeding! I can't take any more of this shit!
The main inspiration for the game came from the 1995 Michael Mann film Heat, where criminals did clean jobs, and even when a shootout did occur, it was very minimalistic and relied on slow movements, and the intensity of the shootout was heightened by the detailed sound design.
You wanna fuck with me?
Fuck! What are you looking at? Jesus fucking Christ!
Furthermore, the game's characters did suit the bleakness of the narrative to some extent. Every character is horrendously unlikable, which does make sense given the fact that every character is a criminal bar Kane's wife and daughter. But they also somehow find a way to make themselves unlikable. The intention for the game is to set Kane and Lynch up to be anti-heroes who put their differences aside to get the job done. In Heat, the criminals were sympathetic because they come off as regular human characters, and they only do what they feel is appropriate to their cause. Here, they're just bitter, cynical assholes with no redeeming quality.
We lost your signal. We didn't know. You didn't know. Kane, I heard you. I don't give a fuck about the men. Just shut that thing off and drive. Shelly, I had to get my daughter. Doesn't matter. You're gonna die here too.
Kane and Lynch know they're dead men. That's even the subtitle for the game, so they show no remorse because they're going to die anyway. Kane's family have a right to be nothing but resentful towards him, but there is no emotional weight to his family, leaving it shallow.
Trust you? Why couldn't you just stay dead?
Kane does have some sense of humility in the letter that he talks about, but it's continuously forced upon the audience rather than given any real sentiment, which makes it feel redundant, much like the black slugs of cliché dialogue.
Looks beautiful. Yeah, I see it. I love you.
Lastly, the narrative plays heavily on the idea that nothing ever goes as planned. In both Dead Men and Dog Days, the problems the two characters encounter continually escalate until all hope is pretty much gone. Not that there was much to begin with. It even goes as far as to have Jenny shot during the actual gameplay, to reinforce the idea that the player doesn't have control of the situation, and that Kane is basically doing no good. Everything plays like a domino effect. Kane's wife says he should have stayed dead, and thus his survival has led to police mass murder, innocent civilian deaths and casualties, financial corruption, a prison security breach, and eventually the death of all of Kane's former team and his family. In Dog Days, we find out that Jenny survives, but that completely undermines the nihilistic tone of Kane and Lynch. The audience simply assume that Jenny is okay, and we move on from that.
How's your daughter? She's fine. I mean, after what she went through.
I said she's fine, okay? Don't start fucking around.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Her death would have reinforced Kane's decrepit and chaotic existence. We know that he can't actually solve any problems, and ironically, isn't an effective leader. Anyway, the point is, the game nearly added an emotional impact to the story's overarching theme. How could you f that up? In conclusion, it's unlikely we'll see another Kane and Lynch game, which doesn't really sadden anyone, but I kinda think it still has some life left in it. It never received enough commercial or critical success to warrant a third game, but the idea it embedded is certainly something worth exploring. The problem with the game came down to its lackluster gameplay, its unsympathetic characters, and really unclear direction. It's certainly not a bad story, and in fact, it's decent enough in how it presents a visceral depiction of criminal life, and Dog Days does have a really distinct visual style that could be worked on. It presents the ugliness of humanity. The savages, the unredeemable, the pathetic lowlifes who make the world worse for others. How the hell did that get Jeff Gerstmann fired? Surely being despicable was the whole point of the game. Interestingly, Rockstar's 2003 stealth thriller Manhunt had a similar style to Kane and Lynch. Manhunt was a purely nihilistic story that contextualized violence to depict a barbaric realism of serial killers and murder. Kane and Lynch could be merited for at least trying to be different, in its role reversal of being the villain for a change, and witnessing the horrors of what they get up to. But if you're still interested in playing a grumpy middle-aged man whose only ability is to shoot down countless enemies, play Max Payne 3. He has no remorse for his actions either.